and we were being a vessel for it to flow in, and whatever came out of the gob came out of it.
If these things are good for you, why don't you start looking at how to make sure that you schedule those into your life to get them in, working out right?
Yeah. Most of those silly ideas were the theoretical physics I just read, and they were, Einstein they thought was off his head.
So in the last episode, we were doing a little bit of kind of freewheeling as we were going along, exploring various... Free-flowing with the universe.
There's
still a wheel as well.
Letting it flow inside the still mind from the outside. We were being at one with the universe, and we were being a vessel for it to flow in, and whatever came out of the gob came out of it based on interaction, reaction, ping pong, tit for tat.
And that's not a bad thing.
And then just see where we went.
And that's not a bad thing. And what we were doing was effectively, we were starting to discover that our chat was becoming more open. We were starting to explore openness. And I think we found a couple of definitions which I think are quite useful. And one of them is that openness is a lack of restriction and accessibility. And it's also a lack of secrecy and concealment. It's about being frank. Now, in many ways, I think for our own self, part of that journey is to be frank with ourselves and be open about where we are and who we are and what we are.
You can be Frank, I'll be Bill from Sir Bill and Ted. You're going, don't know who this Frank is, but he seems to get around a bit.
It's the frankness of the whole thing. But the main thing is to not restrict oneself from possibilities and be open to whatever else, what is there. Even if you...
Open-minded.
Yeah, open-minded. And I think quite often a lot of people are frightened that if they explore certain ideas that are against even their core belief system, that somehow they'll get corrupted. And in many ways what it is no, that... Don't be frightened. Explore the other ideas so you can actually compare where you are to make sure that it's using critical thinking to see if that's a way to go forward as one possibility. The other thing is that sometimes people overanalyze things so much that they become static and not able to move forward. And part of the process that we're encouraging folks to think about, including ourselves, is to make sure that we don't just overthink and get too bogged down or clogged down, but start to be more proactive in the way that we approach the world, to be more open.
Actually, I'm so aware now. I have to be more open. I'm so aware of I've got to drop that, but it's my thing. It's my go-to. I don't even know I'm doing it. It's the first word thrown out by my mind so I can find what the hell it is I'm going to talk about next. But what it reminded me of is the book, the quantum theory book, was what was really happening there was I walked by it once and I walked back. I picked it up and in my normal scheme of things is I'm not open to reading nuclear physics, theoretical physics, and God knows what. I don't know where the book came from. And then I said, I'll just look at it. Now, it was highly technical, and this was a summary of a summary of a summary twice removed. But I said, I'll keep on going. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to know. I'm not going to give a doctoral thesis talk in it. I may have even got it all wrong after the fact. But I said to myself, I'm open to reading it. I'll give a couple of hours of my life that's left to it. I'll see what it's saying. I'll see what all these people that spent their entire lives vested and invested in exploring definitions and theories and formulas to quantify the universe or explain what our place is in it, if any at all. So what the book really was for me was I was open to reading it, and it was interesting. And I don't agree. I don't even think I'm qualified to even understand to agree or disagree. I just took a couple of simple little things out of it and said, here I am is this little dot on a dot flying through the universe at whatever speed in the cosmos, and you can look at it two ways. Am I immaterial, or is there a big red arrow saying you are here, and what is your role in all of this? So you can get drowned out of it all, or you can be open to the fact you're here, what are you doing, and you have a significance in the universe, and it'd be nice to know what that might be and how I can contribute. I'm open to finding out a bit more.
What I find very interesting about the process that we're going through is that we we're becoming aware of how we're being influenced because we're now being more open. And I mentioned before about, you buy a new car and suddenly you see a lot more of them. But what's happening with me is that I'm starting to notice that through popular culture or programs, like we could have a conversation and all of a sudden some of the words on the next program I watch on YouTube or a list of titles in the book suddenly triggers a curiosity to go and explore. And then I suddenly find, oh, hang on, this connects to this, it connects to something else. And before I know it, there's a big picture that's being painted in my mind of how a lot of things in the past are now sort of connecting, and I can explore those things and find an interesting journey towards the future that I'd been blinded to before and didn't realize what the significance of that. One of the films that they showed was called Signs. You remember the film about the dad that there's an invasion going on, and he didn't realize the significance of it, but all of a sudden, all the way through right from the very beginning, his daughter was leaving little glasses of water everywhere and said it was contaminated. And it's only in the very last scene that you began to realize that the significance of the water was it could save them. And I won't explain how, but it did. And there was a process of going,
go watch the film. Go watch the film.
But it's basically this water was positioned exactly where it needed to be by the daughter all the way through the story. She kept on doing it for the 1.5-hour show. And then all of a sudden it was there as part of a process to get them out of a tight spot.
Why is the idea or the notion I see dead people popped into my head from another film, but it's got nothing to do with it. It's just going.
That's the same director. So you've actually made a connection. You've made a connection.
Now there's the word. I was trying to think of the word connection because I'm an avid fan of Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, Mostly Harmless, but Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency is another one, and it's probably on Netflix. But in there, or I don't even think it's in that particular series, I think it's in the book. But in the book is his theory, and it's the fundamental interconnectedness of all things. Therefore, in the journey of the detective, he says, look, he doesn't go looking for clues. The clues just appear because the universe just gives them to him. So he randomly walks out the door and he doesn't know why he's going that direction, where he's going. And no matter what he does, it will lead to the ultimate solution because everything is interconnected. So that's the fundamental nature of what we're doing now. It's every program we watch is suddenly a jigsaw piece in the big picture of the universe, of the journey we're going on. If we are open to that if we're open to it, it doesn't even need to be a fact. It becomes a fact. It's a fiction at the moment. It's a fantasy. Actually, what that book, again, I was realizing I was a should have, would have, could have, always have been, because I'm a daydream believer, daydreaming, and I kept on daydreaming it but not materializing it. So therefore I didn't have to put my hands up and go, I didn't achieve it. I could have achieved it. I should have achieved it. I would have if I wanted to. I do want it. I just don't know what the it is. I think I'm more open to the fact now I'm on a journey of self-exploration, or with George, and I'm sure you're on the same journey, and we all can be if we're more open to the universe, see what it puts in front of us, be it book, be it conversation, be it new person to talk to. I'm open to the fundamental.
Well, here's the thing. I have the same kind of problem. Quite often I can't get to the very thing that I want to, but I find connecting things around it. So I was talking about a film called Signs. And you kept hearing, I hear dead people, which is actually a line from the film called The Sixth Sense. So we're talking about The Sixth Sense. There's another connection. And the filmmaker is M. Night Shyamalan. Okay, he's the director who makes some fairly interesting sort of films. But we couldn't see the very thing we were looking for, but we were given a connection around. Bit like your electron going around the nuclei of an atom. We were given the thing that would connect us in there, and we just needed to see it from a slightly different perspective. And I think that's something that's quite important. It's quite often we just need to be nudged round a little bit further so we could see a different perspective that connects us to the thing we're looking at.
There's something that, see, I wouldn't have known. It would have took me a while. I probably would have known that the film was The Sixth Sense. But I would have to think about. Probably the only thing I can remember about the film is the line. Actually, I probably would have remembered the line probably from an ad and not necessarily the film, because it's the only one you ever see in popular culture you might try and remember where it came from and then join the dots. But the sixth sense, as an actual term, we've been talking about this sixth sense, this open to the universe and the fundamental interconnectedness of all things, and let the flow in. And it's this other senses beyond the material ones. I mean, I don't even know feel, touch, you probably remember the five of them, but let's go with the sixth one, because we know, we feel.
Well, the sixth sense is, the five senses are sight, taste, smell, hearing, and touch. The sixth sense is being aware of the supernatural.
Right. Now, this is where it comes back to the beginning of the conversation. ESP. This back into the book of instantaneous, the theorem was the local principle, something like that. And basically you can't travel faster than the speed of light, because this theorem requires that you can. And the only thing in popular culture that meets this theorem is actually voodoo, in the sense of you can put the pinprick here into the belly of a doll and you're 5,000 miles away and you bend over with the pain and there's nothing joining the two dots. Yeah, and it's this sixth sense, this extrasensory
We've also
power.
talked about the mother that has a vision of her son who is completely wet, soaking wet, and he says to her, "Don't worry, I'm okay." She rings London, she's in Australia, to find out if he's okay, and then discovers that he just drowned. So there's that sixth sense that's kind of connecting us.
And the sixth sense is that little thing in the side of the head, going back to the Egyptians, which is the third eye, the portal to the other universe. It's this, it's like it says, the extrasensory power. This power to travel, this power to travel through the mind, to dream, to fulfill, to open to the universe and explore ideas and make them real. And it's this extra sense of not just dealing with the facts in front of you, but have the power to dream and believe and make real. It's to not feel restricted, to be open to all possibilities, quotes all the books. But this gut, usually, sir, I think another way of calling it was the gut feel. It's I think Chopra was saying, how do you use all your senses without actually tap into the unconscious? It was, if you don't like that person or you don't like this thing, it could be just a gut feel. It's that sixth sense. You don't need to go off and work out the facts. Go with the gut feel. This is a good thing. It's a bad thing. Do you want to go with the flow? No, I don't feel right. Don't. If you feel right, go with it. Because your subconscious is filling in all the dots.
Well, one of the issues there is that if you're constantly in the chitter-chatter box and you're not open to what's going on around you, you can't see the things that are actually happening. And sometimes you're not able to make the connections. You can't see the patterns. You're not aware of the other worlds that are interconnecting to ours.
You're shutting down all the other senses. You're in your head listening to the noise of the negativity of your and what's happening is you're shutting down what you can see in front of you. You're not even looking. You're not feeling. You're feeling this negativity, Maisie, but you're not tasting and you're not moving.
The other thing is, where is that chitter chat coming from? Because sometimes, although it may sound as though it's your voice talking to you and telling you can become just as obvious that there's that negativity is you're actually being open in that sense, in a negative way, to something that is getting better off you and dragging you down. Whereas if you can shut that off and then become open to the other possibilities.
Yes, we were talking to the fact for every negative and positive are two opposite charges at the most simple, basic level, and they should cancel each other out. There's a positive for every negative. There's a negative. Just keep it simple. And we're letting the negative is the one that's flying the flag in the mind. If it's shutting everything else down and closing the loop and closing off possibilities and not being open to change or growth or anything else, and chucking in all the worst of the possibilities and making them the most likely certainty within your mindset, because you've already gone on the journeys in your head and arrived at the wrong conclusions or the most likely conclusions based on the evidence advanced. And the only evidence advanced was the negativity. It wasn't all the glory. It wasn't all the good.
The other thing is, I think, as we discussed about the atom, without the electron, which is that negatively charged, the atom couldn't actually form as structure. So it needed that element. And I think also as human beings, although we've got that chitter chatter box that seems quite negative, on occasions we need that negativity. We need
The flight
yeah,
or
we
fight,
need to be able
you
to
know,
ground ourselves at times. So although we may have flights of fantasy, but sometimes we need that little negativity to bring us back to one sense of reality. So
I
there
think
needs to be a
that's it. The
balance there. Do you know what I mean? It's like
Yes,
there's a
but
picture
it's
of
not-
me and there's light on one side and there's dark on the other. But if you either had no light, I'd be completely dark. You wouldn't see me. If there was too much light, you couldn't see me at all, again, because it'd just be white. But because there's a good balance, you get to see a nice 3D image of me.
But I don't think, no, I'm just thinking back to, there's a positive person and there's a negative person. Who do you want to hang out with? And you're going, but I might know the negative person, but you're giving me a choice. I want to be
Absolutely.
with the positive. Now, if everyone was positive and the most extreme positive, then you're off with the fairies. You're off there going, oh, everything is possible, everything is great, but nothing is happening. Now, you can be positive, but it'd be nice to think everyone's is on a measure from zero charge to positive charge and not entering into how negative is that person. They're negative. They're just pure negativity. They're vile.
Well,
they're
let's put it
nearly
into
a
another. Let's
disease.
put it into another kind of context.
Toxic is the word I was looking
that
for,
could be
yeah.
toxic and extremely toxic, which is, and both sides can be if imbalanced. What I was thinking was there is that if you've got these. Let's say you've gone into a flight of fantasy and you can imagine something you want to do, but in a positive way, you could just sit there and say, oh, well, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. I'm really enjoying that. But the negative side, so what are you prepared to do to make that become a reality? So there's that balance coming, saying, okay, well, there's what is the gain that you want, but you haven't thought the pain that you need to get there. So you need to get that balance and you need to weigh things up, which I think those kind of ideas become quite good.
Actually, that's the thing. I'm just realizing that they were just two extremes. You're not one charge or the other charge. It's the moment in time, the item being again, these people could just go to negative, go to positive, try and always find the good in something, try and always find the bad. But they might have a preference for, I like steak, I don't like fish. I'm not being negative about it. I'm not eating it, I'm not trying it. No, I'm a little bit more like that. I'm not even going to attempt to try it because I don't want it. And what the interesting thing is at the moment, using this language, I'm more open in the last couple of weeks. I'm now running with my daughter every morning. I mentioned that. I'm eating hummus and I don't even know what half the things are, and before I would have just said salads. I don't know. That's a big generic term to cover all things vegetarian with different colours. I want to know nothing about because it's got halloumi burgers and falafel the other, and I don't. It just wasn't a steak. It wasn't a burger. It wasn't a sausage. It wasn't beans on toast. And I was just not open to it. Now I'm going. Actually, I like the taste. They're okay. They're nice. I might even get to like it. Now I might even have a preference for it. And I think I'm more open to more things. I may not have time for them. I'll choose between an A and a B where I have a preference. But I'm not shutting things down as quick. I'm open to reading different books on different subjects I knew nothing about. I may not read a second one, but I'll form an opinion and go, it's more now. I'd rather do this than that. It's a preference based on limited time, but I'm not shutting things down or people down. I'm open to listening. Not that you could tell from this conversation, letting George in, but I'm open to listening more.
Well, I think what's very important is that all of those sort of things that you're choosing to do, you're trying to work out a balance in your life. So there's a time set aside for each of those things to get the kind of right balance. Because if you get one of them, if you become obsessed with one of them, all the others could get neglected. And that could be bad for you as well, because you think you're doing something positive, but you're so obsessed in doing it that you end up destroying the other things or diminishing them because you've not given them the attention that they need. So you've got to get that balance right, but still being open up to other opportunities.
Yeah. I keep on doing what my word actually is shut up, George. I've got something to say. I think it's better than yours. I'm going to put it in. You're doing great, but I'm taking it to the floor. Now, that's what people will notice over
That's
time.
interesting.
Garvin
That's
is
an
such
interesting position that you're taking there, actually.
I actually sort of. Now, what popped into my mind was what George was talking about there, reminded me of Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within. I still don't know his four big things, 5 big things. But what he was saying, and what he was drawing on from other great speakers and motivational speakers and coaches and theorists and researchers and God knows what, that is, we're not to do one thing to the extreme to the other. Because even if we're doing that well and very, very well, it's not balanced. So if you're concentrating on your wealth, you may not be concentrating on your health. If you're concentrating on your health and wealth, you may not be concentrating on your family. If you're concentrating on all the three of them, you may not be concentrating on your mind. Your mind could be full of concentrating on and getting stressed about the fact it didn't do its run, didn't do this, didn't have any rest, didn't actually have any mindfulness. So you have to actually do them all. At different days of the week, they might go up or down, but to have your family project, your home project, your business project, your mindfulness project, and your health and wealth and your health and well-being, because you want to be here longer and long enough to enjoy the accolades and the rewards of what you're doing from and with your family and friends.
And quite often, most people, when they're told that they have to go and follow a schedule, they get kind of, oh, do I have to follow a schedule? But what you can start to look at is that if these things are good for you, why don't you start looking at how to make sure that you schedule those into your life to get them in. Working out right. Because there are a lot of times, the reason why people get it wrong is because they haven't scheduled. I knew students in the past that scheduled in college, they'd scheduled in the job they needed to do, they scheduled in the family, then they hadn't scheduled in the time that they needed to rest and to have a little bit of fun. Recharge. Do you know what I mean? Which is their recharge. So they'd missed two elements and they didn't know where to fit it in and they were struggling mentally. So we had to start to work out some kind of plan to show them that they could have permission to do the things that they like to do just because it was fun and they could enjoy themselves as long as they had the balance right.
Well, that's it. We're trying to build certainty back into an uncertain world based on the certainty that exists is if tomorrow is 24 hours long and you're awake, sort of 16 of them, there's a morning, an afternoon, and an evening, and if there's work to be done and leisure and pleasure to be fitted in, where would they most naturally lie? You can put them in any order you want, but you're building in the certainty through the scheduling because you want to achieve certain things by end dates, and this is the language of business, or just pops back in and going, I have a goal, I want to reach it, I've got a timeline to do it, I've got resources available, I have a budget, but in the absence of actually putting them in the right critical path, there's the certainty of achieving your end game may not happen if the wrong critical path is started. If I start doing my fun before my business if I need light in the day, I can't be saying, well, I'm doing that work at night because now I have to build in the false light. And so I'm actually enjoying getting up in the morning. I'm fine. I'm getting up a bit earlier. I'm now having more energy from actually doing the opposite of what I expected by running and exercising. To me, does not make sense to give energy. Now, I know every book out there says it, but it's tiring even thinking about it, and I'm wrecked after it. But when I have the shower, it's restart. I'm awake, and I'm energized, and I'm looking forward to the next step in the day. And the day is longer, and the food is making me that I'm not drained as well. So it makes all the research is right, and I got to accept it. That I need to build it in so we can now focus on the schedule in the middle of achieving our plans and goals and dreams.
And then when you start to set out your schedule, you can see how realistic you're being or not, depending on how you've actually structured it over a period of time. And that also takes away the stress because you're not then panicking in case you've forgotten to do something and where do I get that in? Because you've actually tailored it in and you're now finding that a lot of the stresses are starting to go. The other thing is to make sure that if there's someone that's in your life that's influencing you in a kind of negative way that tries to overload you, I think it was Julian Cameron calls those people the crazy makers, because what happens is that you may schedule something for yourself to do and they just happen to turn up and expect you to drop everything and do what they want you to do at that particular point in time. So again, it's also getting used to the fact that you can say no. Not this moment. I've got this to do, but if you give me a little bit of time, I can schedule you in there.
I was reading that same chapter, and I think I mentioned to you, I read that chapter, and the first few paragraphs of it, I was going, I am George's crazy maker. I am. You might be charismatic. You might be loud. You might have great ideas. You could be distracting. It sounds great. It's all bells and whistles and plans for world domination. and then you just run out of steam and do nothing. But what I did was I took up your time in that time, talk about all these fantasies and possibilities, and then did nothing about it, and then stopped. I know in the past I was the ultimate dreamer of these possibilities of starting businesses and being an entrepreneur and being on Shark Tank and Dragon's Den. And then I didn't. Then I went off and that was a great conversation. I'm off for a burger, can of Coke, and God knows what. And that's the end of that. And tomorrow there'll be a new one and a new big thing to do. And then it's a bunch of, I'm all steam, I'm all blown up and I'm instilling passion into the moment and then diffusing back into, do nothing about it. So that's the stop now. I'm open to ideas. We want to find things that excite us. And now it's make it real and give it the energy it demands and the focus if you so please.
I think it's important.
Nice
I think it's important because although you may have seen that as a person within yourself, I was actually scheduling that time for Crazy Maker, Garvin. So it wasn't actually a disruption to me in the way that he perceived it to be. Because at the end of the day, I was allocating a certain period of time to do the talk with Garvin because it was actually good for me and it was good for him to have those chats. I then was motivated and went off, and I've been editing these shows. I've been testing out ideas and possibilities, and there's a lot of, now, Garvin calls this work, but I enjoy what I'm doing. But I know we had goals to set. I've set those goals and I've allocated the time to do those so we know that we will achieve what we're hoping to have in place, which is a load of videos that we can keep on streaming on a regular basis. What I need to do is I need to make sure I schedule in a bit more exercise because that's the imbalance that I've currently got. But all the other things are starting to work out. But that's because I'm now giving myself permission to do that. I'm not letting other people take charge of my life as much as I once would have done. And the interaction with Garvin has actually allowed me to achieve that because I've now been able to make some of the connections that I hadn't done beforehand just by having the conversation with Garvin to see a different perspective on my life that I wouldn't have necessarily have had. So the dialogue with another person who has a different perspective from where you are, especially if it's a complete contrast, can help boost your own personal esteem to say no to other people that may actually be using and abusing you. And I think that becomes a really important part of finding the right people to collaborate with.
Actually, no, stop saying it.
Don't focus on
No,
that.
I'm not going to stop saying it. No, I'm not going to sort of focus on it because I have a book beside me and it's pretty much the subtle art of not giving a you know what. And I remember reading it, but I can't remember. I just remember I enjoyed it. I read it I bought it because of the title and nothing else, because even just the title is fine. That is what I'm drawing on. It's the subtle art of not giving a damn what everyone else thinks, because before I was giving too much weight to others, to what they thought. That's not their life, it's my life, and they're taking my time, and they're preventing my uncertainties becoming certainties by being the crazy maker and putting their preference in and saying you're better off doing this, and you shouldn't worry about you shouldn't do that, and you should stay on this one track to Road to Nowhere, a Talking Heads song. We're no longer on the road to nowhere, we're on the road to somewhere. And I like the crazy makers. I am probably the most crazy one out there. I've always been insane in the membrane. That's probably another song somewhere else. And you got to get a little bit insane in the membrane to get those other crazy ideas in. Because if you can't think crazy first, you're not thinking at all. You got to think crazy to find what then falls out. You go through that to get this. That's sane. That wasn't a crazy idea, but it came from that. And now we're going to make sane this crazy idea and be entrepreneurs and be disruptors.
It's being healthy to be open to those ideas and to have the confidence to share them, however mad they may appear. I remember in school, even as a teacher teaching students, people kind of go, I've got a silly idea, so I'm not going to say something. And you suddenly realize, but that silly idea could have been the germ of a great conversation that we could have had. So don't be frightened to express those ideas. No matter, there's no silly ideas. There's no silly answers to questions.
Most of those silly ideas were the theoretical physics I just read. And they were, Einstein, they thought was off his head. And literally ideas that couldn't even be proven with tech or machine, like till 60 years later, till nearly after his death. were all proven because he could think of something so preposterous as antimatter or the speed, or the pull of a black hole, or God knows what, or nothing can escape the pull of the black hole. I think he was of one mind at one time in his life, and then after he said, no, there's actually evidence of something getting sucked into the black, or not being able to get sucked into the black hole, and it breaking free. But to think at a distance of universes with no way of proving or disproving in a room, to come up with these ideas, out of dreams, or out of ideation, out of ideas, the journey to the moon and sun and stars is born. And without it, we would have been a bunch of monkeys running around on a planet, or depending, of course, on seeding the planet from ancient aliens. But both ideas are fine. Both are entertaining and both hold weight.
If we look at the fact that in some cases we talked about the universe has given you an idea or presented you with something, the fact we've talked about different key words that we saw, the fact that you're being given that idea at that particular moment is significant to the situation that you're finding yourself in. So don't be frightened to say it, even if it doesn't mean anything, or you think it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes you're not aware of how what you're about to say, however silly you may think it is, may be massively significant to somebody else, and may actually help them to be open up to you or to others to.
That reminds me of a sentence I sent out into the virtual realm of social media not too long ago, going, I'm off to disrupt. Hello, universe, I'm off to disrupt. I can't even remember the exact sentence, but George answered. You might even remember the sentence, but, it was asking the universe, is anyone listening? I'm talking to the universe was by, putting that little ping into social media and just sending it out there. And George came back, and now we're a year and a half later, we're having, very, very strange conversations, literally about the world, the universe, and everything.
But we're being open to one another. And I think that's quite important. We're being open to one another. We're open to possibilities. We're exploring ideas in a collaborative form, and we can see where we can go. The other thing is that what we're now being is Garvin's talked about it a few times, the I am. We're now being to be. We're being in the present. We're exploring ideas.
Human beings. Not alien beings.
Human beings.
Humans being. Yes. So these bodies are being. They're just to being. They're being, whatever they're at. We were going on a little journey of our paintings, going, I am not a number. I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. I'm not where I'm meant to be. We're on a journey. We know down the other end it's going to be, I am Joker, I am artist, I am happy, or I am father, I am brother, I am sister, I am mother, I am human being. I'm in the moment. I am now. That's all that matters. So
we've come to the end of another episode. Thank you for being with us on this occasion, and I hope that you'll find a way of being
not
open.
Not necessarily a human being. It could be Mars being, or we don't Grey being, or Ant being. These other beings out there. There's beings. Being.
Thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
All the best. Take care. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.